Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for being here this morning. Before we start, we all just wanted to express our thoughts and our prayers for John Dingell. Debbie Dingell, our colleague, has asked for thoughts and prayers, and we just want to affirm what a tremendous man of service he's been, served in the House for 59 years, and we certainly send all of our thoughts and prayers to the Dingell family this morning. We're going to hear from my colleagues more about the State of the Union last night. It was a tremendous speech by the president, laid out a path forward in terms of where we need to go on a range of issues, and really, I think, set the right tone in terms of the kind of bipartisan work that we need to do together. But there's something in particular that I want to speak to this morning and that my colleague, Congresswoman Wagner, wants to speak to. And that's to make sure that every American understands what today's Democrat Party stands for with respect to babies and with respect to the murder of babies. We have seen now in states across the country the introduction of legislation that would enable the killing of babies. This is not about abortion. This is about killing babies after they are born. And it is the face of pure evil. And you've seen the leadership of the Democrat Party here on the Hill remain silent while elected leaders, including the governor of Virginia, described in very cold clinical terms how he would in fact facilitate the murder of a baby that had already been born. And I want to say personally, as a mother, I'm the mother of 5 kids. I've delivered 5 babies. And the idea that we have to say today to mothers all across this country that we've got to describe what the Democrats are doing is really horrific. And I want to ask mothers across this country to join with us to make sure that we don't see our maternity wards turned into killing fields, which is what the Democrats would do if we don't stop this. So we are absolutely dedicated to stopping this, dedicated to protecting the most vulnerable among us, which are the unborn, and the notion that we're having a debate about whether or not you should be able to kill babies is, as I said, absolutely horrific and evil, and we will stand up against that. And with that, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Congressman Wagner.
Thank you. I thank our chair of our conference, Liz Cheney. I stand before you today as a representative of Missouri's 2nd Congressional District, as a congressman, but also as a mother of 3 and a grandmother of a 1-year-old baby, Isabella Marie. And I'm here to speak on behalf of the babies who survive abortions and are, in fact, born alive. Our Constitution clearly states that all persons born in the country are entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness and equal protection under the law. Our founding fathers did not put age limits on who is entitled to life. But over the past month, I've been astounded to watch radical legislators upend our Constitution and argue that babies who survive abortions should not be given the same level of medical care that other newborn babies are given. New York legislators repealed a law mandating medical care for any baby born alive during an abortion. A law proposed in Virginia would allow abortions up to the very moment of full delivery. Congress must act to protect the babies who cannot protect themselves. And this week, I have introduced the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. We're calling it the Born Alive Act. This is H.R. 962, which merely ensures that babies who survive abortions receive immediate life-saving care just as any other baby would. The bill would require healthcare providers to exercise skill, care, and diligence to preserve the lives and health of these children and then immediately transport and admit them to the hospital. The Born Alive Act is not radical legislation. It just makes certain that America's children receive appropriate medical care upon their birth. We can and we should all be able to come together and to agree that if a child is born alive, then every effort should be made to protect his or her precious life. This is why I'm joining forces with our leadership team here and my good friend and colleague Whip Scalise, who is filing a discharge petition to bring the Born Alive Act straight to the floor. I'm pleased the President defended the dignity of these babies during the State of the Union last night, and we will work with the administration and the Senate and our colleagues here in the House on both sides of the aisle to ensure that no newborn baby is denied health care in the United States of America. This is the simplest decision you will ever make. Either you support babies being denied life-saving health care after they're born, or you don't. Simple as that. Thank you. I yield time now to my good friend, the Whip Steve Scalise. Trajan.
Thank you, Ann. Well, first I'd like to say that President Trump did a tremendous job last night of highlighting the greatness of America. And, you looked at some of the guests that he invited in the gallery. It started with Buzz Aldrin, one of our great astronauts, heroes who helped Americans realize that we could achieve even more than we expected of ourselves if we just reach out and try harder. And that greatness was exhibited by those three men who stormed the beaches of Normandy, the World War II heroes who helped free our country from socialism and Nazism and standing up against some of the really bad elements all around the world. But then if you look at one of those heroes who stormed the Normandy beach, the president went further and talked about how not only did he storm the beaches of Normandy, but then a year later, he was able to help liberate Dachau. And in that same moment, talked about a Holocaust survivor who was there, who not only survived the Holocaust, but was helped and liberated by one of those very men who sat right beside him in the gallery. So it was a special moment for people to see some of the true heroes who helped make this country great. And as the president talked about and featured that greatness, he also talked about the things that we need to do to achieve even greater things and to solve some of the big challenges our country's facing. And I thought the president did a really important job of laying those out, especially the crisis at the border. We're in the middle of negotiations over how to secure our border. And our experts, months ago, put together a plan. The people who risked their lives to keep our country safe laid out a plan of what it's going to take to actually secure our border and what it's going to cost. And so the president presented that months ago, and even in December, right before a government shutdown, the House passed a bill to properly fund it, and it never made it to the president's desk. And then ultimately we had a government shutdown, and then we went through 35 days of a government shutdown. Not one single time during that shutdown did Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer put a single counteroffer on the table for what their plan would be to secure our border. And then ultimately the president stepped in and said, let's end this, let's keep the negotiations going and end the shutdown. And now we're 9 days away from another potential shutdown, and the Democrats have still yet to put a single offer on the table. It's time for Democrats to stop playing games with our border security and our national security. And the president talked importantly about how we need to secure the border. And it's not just about technology. Clearly that's a part of it. Points of entry security, more Border Patrol agents. But it also involves making sure that we have physical barriers to protect this country, and that includes a wall. And all of that needs to be part of a final solution. And so I encourage Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer to finally put an offer on the table. Don't try to run out the clock, which they might be doing, but ultimately American people are watching closely, and the president challenged everybody last night to choose their ability to deliver greatness or gridlock. The president encouraged us to choose greatness. I encourage us all to reach for greatness as we solve these problems. And finally, I want to applaud my colleague and friend Ann Wagner for her leadership in bringing legislation forward, as the president talked about last night, to prohibit any procedure that would allow for the killing of a baby once it's born. I think most Americans are shocked to find out that it's actually legal in some states to kill a baby after it's been born, after it's come out of the mother's womb. How is that possible and legal in America? It shouldn't be. And so this legislation, the Born Alive bill, will actually give protection to those people who can't protect themselves and say if a baby is born alive, whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, we all agree, we should all agree, that that baby should have the same protections as everyone else. And that's what the bill does. And we've worked together to have a rule that I'm going to be filing today to bring that bill to the floor for a vote and ultimately to have a discharge petition where everybody can go on record. Every member of Congress ought to stand up and be counted on this important issue of defending life. And here's a case where we've seen some states say that they are willing to allow that baby to be killed after it's been born. Let's stand up and protect those innocent lives.
Good morning. I believe the country watched the president last night stand strong for this country and the freedoms that every American believes in. You look at the current poll that says more than 76% approved of the speech. I hope those in the chamber listened. The president talked about not resist, but finding common ground. The president talked about, really, the greatness of America. He talked about the exceptionalism of this country. He just didn't say it, he showed it. When you sat there and he introduced Herman, Irving, and Joseph, the World War II vets, on the introduction, when you watched them stand, the excitement, their hands pumping. They may be long in age, but they still wanted to stand for the country. The president also showed when about criminal justice reform, that we can find common ground together. And what are the results of that? The introduction of the two individuals. That yes, we're changing lives of this country. The exceptionalism of what we've been able to do in the past, but let's apply it to a changing future. That's why he laid out a case for legal immigration, making it even stronger and securing the border. We just have 2 weeks to go. A lot of that work needs to be done this week. I hope the same feeling that Americans had, that chamber has, that they will rise to the occasion, that we can find the common ground and solve this problem. I know for one, the president wants to make it happen. Speaking to him today, he wants to continue the speech last night and the feeling and the atmosphere of what was inside that chamber. I applaud the president, applauding the Democrats for their win. And for the president going forward, I think one thing we have to realize. One of the strongest statements he made is, for those World War II vets who fought, they fought for the freedoms, that we will not have socialism in America, that he will stand up against it. He also stood up for those who could not speak for themselves, the same that Ann Wagner is doing with her bill. This doesn't have to be partisan, and it shouldn't be. I applaud our whip for bringing out a discharge petition, but we shouldn't have to get to a discharge petition. That is why today I'll ask for unanimous consent for the House to consider Ann Wagner's Born Alive Protection Act. And you know what? If the Democrats object, we'll ask again and again and again. Because it is just right. It's not a partisan issue. It's an issue of saving a life that is already born. I think everyone can agree with that. It shouldn't take time. We should actually solve this problem this week. Questions, comments? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Leader McCarthy. If the conference committee cannot come up with an agreement that conforms with the guidelines the White House has laid out, should the president just go ahead and declare a national emergency?
I think the president was very clear, even last night, that we are a legislative body, and we should use our power to solve this. He has a responsibility as well to protect this nation, but he's giving us the time to get the job done. Members have been meeting. The conference committee has been meeting. There was a bipartisan codel down to the border to get more information on the process. But I believe at the end of the day, we should get this done legislatively, and I'm looking forward to making that happen. Yes.
The president suggested last night that Congress should simply stop investigating his administration. Do you think it's appropriate for Congress to completely give up its oversight role?
Look, we will never give up our oversight rule, but this country is too great for a small vision of just an investigation. There are challenges out there that we have to get done. And to be fair, we have been investigating for the last 2 years. I think it should come to a close. I think the country wants to be able to solve the problems going forward. They want to see the challenges that we have, but actually rise to the occasion that the generations of Americans have done before us. Yes.
On the discharge petition, two questions. Number one, have you talked to any Democrats who might be willing to sign on to this? Do you guys have like a target list of people who might be interested that you're planning on talking to?
I'll let Steve, because Steve's going to offer it.
Go ahead. Yeah, I can.
We know over the years there are a number of Democrats who have voted with us on pro-life legislation, and in fact, we brought a similar bill to the floor last Congress and passed it, and got 6 Democrats to vote with us. I hope that list grows. I think as people realize that this procedure is actually legal in a number of states, they're first shocked because they don't think it should be legal, and they're surprised that it actually is. And then they wonder why anybody would oppose it. And so I think as we continue to promote this nationally, and that's where Ann's leadership is going to be so important to spread that message around the country.
We'll start with the 6 Democrats that signed on to the legislation, and we'll grow. There's a whole new group of Democrat freshmen that I think will be anxious to be on this. It's been brought to the forefront. I think people are seeing the horrors of this. There are other states also, Colorado, Alaska, New Hampshire, and a handful of others that are also allowing late-term abortions. We do not want to see these states slip into what we're seeing in New York and Virginia. So we're going to take this opportunity that the legislation has been elevated, and we're going to sign up as many as we possibly
And
can.
second question, just a quick follow-up. Leader McCarthy, I remember last year you criticized Republicans for using the discharge petition to bring up immigration. Why the shift in attitude? Is this just reflection of this is one of the limited tools that you have in your toolbox in minority?
You heard me say earlier that I'm going to ask for unanimous consent to bring the bill to the floor today, that we don't have to go to a discharge petition. I would hate to have to use the discharge petition for this. We shouldn't have to. How many more lives will be saved by the number of days you have to wait for a discharge petition? So yes, I have the same position I had then. That's why we'll ask for unanimous consent today, and we'll ask for unanimous consent tomorrow if they deny us today. Yes.
Question.
How will House Republicans respond if and when the Ways and Means Committee seeks the president's tax returns? And do you think it's right for the administration to decline that request and make this into a legal fight as they've indicated?
Again, that just seems political to me. I think Ways and Means should focus their time making sure of how strong this economy is today, of how we can even make it stronger. I think that's the focus that the American people would like to see going forward, and that's the focus we'd have as well. Thank you.
Oh, are you Christine?
Yes, I am. Hey, I'm just wanted to make sure that you're on policy and everything. Get my card and everything.
I actually don't. I have an old one on me. The numbers.
Cool.
I have not been asked. Then I'll do my interview.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm kind of new to the team, so still familiarizing
No, that's
faces
right.
and everything.
I think I followed you on Twitter.
Oh, okay, perfect. Oh, yes, what's with these right